Sandy Munro is going to be here for yet another episode of the Teardown with Sandy Munro, something that we do every month. He's one of our monthly contributors. If you're interested in what he has to say on a regular basis, and if you're interested in everything that's going on in the world of electric cars, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Today, we're going to tackle a question of why in the world is Tesla still dominating the electric car market? And I don't mean just in sales, I mean in technology. So many other brands have tried, from the legacy manufacturers all the way to startup companies and everyone in between. I even heard the company that makes hand dryers, not good hand dryers, but hand dryers, has tried and failed. So before that, a quick reminder that this video and this channel is sponsored by Evanex, the Tesla community's accessory store. Use E4Electric, the name of this channel, as a discount code for all of your purchases over $100. All right, on to our conversation. All right, Sandy, welcome back to your segment on E4Electric, but you have someone with you today. Please do introduce your co-pilot today.
Co-pilot? Oh, no. This is the expert in batteries. Actually, today I'll probably be just sitting here nodding my head, but you wanted to talk a little bit about batteries, and Mark Ellis, my associate, Dr. Mark Ellis, if he's in China, because he was given a PhD for battery technology and battery manufacturing and battery installation of equipment and whatnot. So Mark's been around the horn. He knows everything there is to know about the chemistry, the manufacturing, the whatever. So, and I don't want to give him any more praise again. Right, big head, and he'll ask for a raise. So we can't. I can't have.
And Sandy, you're just going to be here as an eye candy, from what I understand, right? Okay, excellent. Okay, now I understand the setup. Yeah. Let's get into it. So, all right, so we're talking about batteries today, and the question that I have, and I think a lot of people have, is this. Tesla has been around. They've been around for a while, but since Model S, that put them on the map with, I'd say, mainstream somewhat, 8 years now. And in the beginning, everybody was kind of like, all right, cool, they're startups, so they're ahead of everybody. That's fine, but people will catch up. I mean, what's a big deal? I mean, their battery technology comes from Panasonic, and everybody can do that. Well, apparently after 8 years of trying, people cannot do that. And I don't mean people, I mean brands cannot do, legacy brands with billions and billions of dollars. So let me just ask you a silly question. What is it that Tesla's doing all this time with the batteries that come from a third party that no one else can do?
Well, one of the things you have to look at is Mr. Musk made a financial decision when he chose to use cylindrical cells. Originally, when Tesla came out and said they were going to make a battery pack with 7,800 cells in it, everyone in the industry thought there is no way that they are going to be able to make that work, because you have to go through all of the electronics of balancing and voltage checking and balancing and temperature issues, and people thought he was crazy. He proved them all wrong.
So talk a little bit about why this cylindrical, I have them right here, cylindrical cells they thought would be a failure, versus what are the other types of batteries that people thought would work. And I know even now Tesla might be doing this with a CATL.
Yes, you have three basic kinds of batteries that are used in electric vehicles today. Cylindrical cells, prismatic pouches like LG, and then you have prismatic cans that LG, Samsung, Panasonic, a lot of battery companies make the prismatic cans. And there's advantages and disadvantages to either form. Now, the cylindrical cells, from a commercial standpoint, are much less expensive to make than pouch cells or prismatic can cells. So that was his first smart move. They've been making cylindrical cells for decades, and they are very good at it, and they are very fast at it. And the prismatic pouches and the prismatic cans require a lot more infrastructure in the making of a battery pack, because those two types of cells, the prismatic can and the pouch cells, have to be compressed. And so you've got to have all of the structure in your battery pack to hold compression on these cells so they don't delaminate during charge and discharge. Cylindrical cells act within themselves. So you don't need to have as much packaging, you don't need to have so much support structure to hold the cells in place because, you know, just like with the Duracell battery, they even expand and contract when they're charging or when they're discharging, and they can get hot, but they contain themselves within the cylindrical form, and so do the lithium ion cells. So it's a much easier cell to manufacture.
Actually, when I talk to people about batteries and I try to explain what's going on with a battery, I use the analogy. It's the difference between making a jelly roll, right? You see kids, they just spread some junk on it and they roll it up, done, right? Versus a grilled cheese sandwich. I gotta square things, I gotta cut the ends off, I gotta put stuff inside, I gotta take everything, then I gotta like squash it. And that's kind of what you're looking at. One is very simple and fast, the jelly roll. Then the grilled cheese sandwich is a little bit more difficult and hence costly.
Okay, so he went with the jelly roll, and that was a good financial decision. But, you know, now all of these other companies are, you know, whether startups like Lucid and Byton, or the, you know, legacy like Volkswagen Group and BMW Group, you know, they've tried the same thing, and yet they're still far behind. What is it that Tesla doing that they cannot figure out how to do? And again, they're all using third-party providers, cell providers like, you know, Panasonic and LG Chem, and no one's stopping them from using each other's suppliers. So where's the magic?
It's electronics.
Yeah.
It's in the electronics is where their advantage is. Because like I said, when they said they were going to make a battery pack with 7,000 cells, no one believed that they could balance the cells, keep the voltage levels correct in order for a battery pack to work. Well, their electronics are so superior to all those other companies that yes, they made it work, but they actually made it work really well. And so from the electronic standpoint, they're decades ahead of everybody else.
And the reason that they're decades ahead is because Tesla's vertically integrated, and all these other companies are looking for somebody else to do their work. We've talked about this, I think, before, but vertical integration, everybody says, oh no, look at what happened with Henry Ford. Okay, well, I don't think that Elon's going to go out and start his own rubber plantation to make his own tires or something like that. But if you go in the opposite direction, like most of the OEMs, you wind up in a situation where you have no idea of what's going on. He develops his own chips. That's why he's miles ahead. He's trying to manufacture it, trying to build the next generation, and basically looking deep into the future. The other guys are just, how do I get through the next quarter? So,
yeah, and I get that, but nevertheless, the batteries are still made by Panasonic, right? But so I guess that's where that's where electronics come in. Can you expand a little bit for my audience? What do you mean by electronics? Do you need the actual modules? Do you mean the chips? Do you mean the software? Where now that we identify where the secret sauce lies, what is it that's in there?
All of the above. Everything you mentioned. It's the chips, it's the boards, it's the philosophy on how they maintain balance of charge within the batteries, how they monitor the voltage, how they monitor the temperatures. All of that is controlled through electronics. And that's where Tesla has a big advantage over everyone else. Take the first Chevy Bolts that came out. Chevy Bolt had LG batteries, LG electronics, LG powertrain components, LG motor. Everything was made by LG. General Motors didn't make anything. They just bought stuff, and their supplier supplied them with it.
right.
And so that puts them at a disadvantage from the standpoint of, yes, maybe they told LG how they wanted the logic constructed for the battery management system, but they were stuck with whatever LG's level of technology was. And as Sandy mentioned, Tesla threw out all the rules and started over. Yeah. He didn't end up with a bunch of legacy from old battery guys like myself who've been doing it for 30 years and we're pretty stubborn when somebody tells us we have to change something. And so he basically started with a clean sheet of paper and just did a better job than most other companies that have tried to get into this business.
Yeah, I think initially I said that batteries were easy, and I think it's because I compared it to the electronics. The electronics are hard. That's where things really, really are difficult, because you have to invent new physics sometimes. When you're looking at these controller boards and whatnot, they're vastly different than what we see normally, no matter what. I mean, and that's where Tesla's got the advantage, is in the electronics. The battery itself is just like a gas tank, but how do I get the gas out of the gas tank? How do I take that electricity and bring it in and release it again? And I do it in the most efficient fashion. And that's where, I mean, the balance. What was the balance on the battery pack? 2 to 3
millivolts for each group of 42 or 46 cells.
So show me who's got that kind of control. Nobody. I mean, when I heard it, I thought there was something wrong. Give me that fluke. The fluke is the thing where we test. Give me that fluke. There's got to be, you know, this thing's gone funny. But it wasn't. It was giving us the accurate number. It's just that they know how to control power.
All right. Now let's talk about, so the electronics is, you know, they just don't appear out of the blue. People make electronics, right? So I'm trying to figure out, because, you know, obviously the bigger brands have more money to catch up, and yet they're not. So is it in people that you hire that will create better electronics, or is it the system that you work within, for example, having a clean sheet like Tesla did, versus a big organization of BMW Group or Volkswagen Group, where you can't really just do anything without paperwork and 2 years of approval process and stuff? Where's the problem lies of legacy manufacturers?
Well, it's not one problem. There's a whole bunch of them. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things that contribute. But number one, remember when we had the big meltdown, the banks all went broke, right? Well, who got rid of all their people? NASA, Raytheon, L'Oreal, Lockheed Martin, on and on and on. Where did those guys go? I mean, they're gonna sack the guys that have got the lowest seniority, right? That's all the young. That's the seed corn. That's what's going to make the company grow bigger. And these guys all of a sudden find themselves out of work. What did Elon do? He went and hired them all, brought them in. I'll tell you what, that's what we did too. In 2008 and 9, 10, 11, we hired all kinds of young guys. Why? Oh, because they were brilliant. I can't find guys like that. Normally, they wouldn't come to me. Elon was the same thing. I mean, just think about it. This Saturday, what shot up into outer space? How come Ford doesn't have one of those? How come Bentley? How come VW? How come nobody's got their own space exploration group? Because Elon snapped up the best, and not just the best mechanical or product design guys or electronic designers, but chip designers. And guys who were free thinkers, guys who were, I mean, tremendously smart. It's not so much money that makes things happen. It's the people. People make things happen.
Yeah, okay, a fair answer. So, but then I also wonder, you know, there have been plenty of startups that also started from clean slate, whether they were just completely from scratch, like Lucent, Byton, Fairday Future, and so forth. But there has always also been projects within the legacy manufacturers, like Ford had the Edison Group, where were given, you know, clean, clean canvas, and they couldn't get as far, though nice good effort. How come they weren't able to achieve even close to what Tesla was able to achieve? Are they just too late to the game and all of the good talent is taken, or they just simply their approach is wrong?
Well, the other thing I know about Tesla is that they hire the same way Monroe does. I hire workaholics. We had the little joke about, you know, don't say anything because you'll ask for a raise or something like that. Okay, workaholics, that's what I'm looking for. I want somebody who's totally devoted. I don't want somebody who's coming in here, well, I got to stick it out for 8 hours and then I'm going to run home. I mean, Shinji, sorry, one of my guys, his real name is Shinji, we call him Jay. Jay was in on the weekend. We had to do some special scanning. The damn thing wasn't working. He was there Friday for 16 hours, Saturday for 14 hours, and Sunday, I don't even know how many hours, 12. This is ridiculous. But you know what? He wanted to get that job done. His mindset was, I got to get this done. And a lot of people that you find in the big three. In fact, I had a boss that was phenomenal. His name was Max Jurosik, fabulous guy. And he said in a great big giant all people's meeting, 80% of you are worthless. 20% is really making the company work. That's not me. That's a guy who was a VP of powertrain at Ford. And that's kind of, and at Tesla, I'll bet you that there's the reverse. I bet you if they have 10% of the people that aren't quite as good as what they should be, that would be a stretch. I think everybody that's working there is trying their absolute best to make that company profitable.
Well, and you have to remember where Tesla is located, Silicon Valley.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, the mindset of California and California companies is a lot different than the mindset of Munich or Detroit or Tokyo companies. So you have a little more creative energy. Now you talk about these other startups. Well, were they laser focused on being successful, or were they just trying to make a name for themselves? Were they laser focused in using their funds well and with the kind of technology that they really needed to be successful, or were they living in a little bit of a dream world? I mean, we talk to a lot of people. We talk to a lot of people who are doing startups, and some people have good, well thought out plans, and other people have big dreams that can be as impractical as ever. And so what Tesla did is they had a laser focused vision, and that's what drove them to be as successful as they are.
They're serious. That's the difference between them and most everybody else. They're serious. Every day to them, they get up and or try and earn their wings. Okay, they have to make sure that whatever they come up with is going to be a home run. They haven't got a second chance. Whereas other guys say, well, if this doesn't work, then we'll depend on trucks, or we've always got the the diesel engines that we can. They aren't as serious. The top management is not as serious as what you've got coming out of Tesla.
Okay, all right, I think fair enough. Now let me ask you about this. You mentioned vertical integration. Obviously, that helps with pretty much any technology, and as far as just keeping it moving forward and not having to depend on people who don't, kind of not in the same boat as far as achieving the goal is concerned. But Tesla now, there are reports that they will be making their own battery because they figured out, or are very close to figuring out, the chemistry and sort of the behind the scenes stuff. But they might actually start producing their own cells. Can you talk a little bit about how much of a hill is it to climb to start making your own batteries for someone like Tesla?
Well, one of the things that that's not totally true, because Tesla has a factory full of equipment for making batteries. Because I don't care who says it, but making a battery is not easy. There are lots of things that lots of people don't know about making batteries that they only learn by making the mistakes. Tesla's already seen all the mistakes. They had issues when the Gigafactory first started up. They had issues with the machines. They had issues with this, that, and the other. They've pretty much got that all focused out. So now Tesla wants to make their own batteries, but Tesla is not going to make their own machines. Tesla is not going to recreate the basics about making a battery. They're just going to change the electrochemistry. Right. And if you change, you know, electrochemistry is, when in the early 90s when lithium ion batteries were first coming out, they had lithium ion cells with lots of cobalt in them. Having lots of cobalt in your cells caused them to catch fire, caused them to explode, do all kinds of nasty stuff. So they worked for years to take the cobalt out and still have a very good usable battery. Now, when electric vehicles became popular, they put the cobalt back into the lithium ion batteries because it provided a more energy dense battery per kilowatt, kilowatts per kilogram. You could have more power by adding the cobalt back in. Well, now cobalt's become very, very expensive, and they're going backwards now, trying to take the cobalt out. And so the research that's been done in the last 8 years is probably equivalent to what has been done the previous 80 years on lithium ion batteries. So there's a lot more happening today because there's a market for lithium ion batteries. Back in the 80s and 90s when I started in the battery business, there weren't that many people that knew how to make a battery, did it well, made equipment for making batteries. That's all changed now because there's a huge market for batteries, which is why there are so many new battery companies.
Well, there's another thing too, and they bought Maxwell. When they bought Maxwell, they inherited a bunch of new chemistries. So, not to mention the processes as well. So, well, on top of that, Maxwell was claiming that they were close on a solid state battery. I mean, that's how you stay ahead as well. Instead of trying to figure out how to compete with somebody, sometimes you just look around and say, hey, look at that guy over there. How much is he going to cost? $10 billion? How much will it cost us to try and catch up? Maybe 20 billion? Go buy that guy. And now all of a sudden, I'm not trying really hard to catch up. I already did. Not only did I catch up, but I have exceeded everybody's expectations, and I leapfrogged past everybody else. The other guys don't do that. Nobody does that. Nobody wants to make a big investment.
So you're saying that Tesla is closer than most people think to actually be able to manufacture their own batteries because they've already dealt with, they were kind of already, you know, in the mix with Panasonic, and it's just maybe a matter of, you know, kicking Panasonic out and bringing their own guys in. Is that what I'm getting from you?
That's a joint venture that was set up between Tesla and Panasonic, and if Tesla wants to buy out as joint venture partner, they're going to have the equipment, they're going to have the processes. He's working with some electrochemist out of British Columbia that's one of the fathers of lithium-ion batteries, so he's got his electrochemistry people, he's got his equipment already, so now he's just expanding on that to other markets. Now, if he's working with CATL in China for the China Gigafactory, he's got all of the years of experience CATL has had also now. And so, you know, as they work on getting cobalt out of the lithium-ion battery to make it much less expensive, it's a partnership again. It's not just a single entity.
All right. Well, this is definitely a conversation I'm sure we and everybody else will continue, but I appreciate the insight, and I know the battery day is coming up. We'll probably know so much more and have a conversation based on that. So I appreciate your time, and I will see you next time.
All righty.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you then.
Have a good day.
So long, Alex.
All right, another interesting conversation with Sandy. As always, don't forget he's one of our monthly contributors, so don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I can't help myself but laugh sometimes when I ask him some of the questions and I look at him in my monitor and he goes like, you know, the look on his face, like, Alex, I can't believe you're asking me this. You should really know. And the thing is, like, I don't know a lot of this stuff, and also some of this is crowdsourced by, you know, my audience and some of the other people in the industry that I ask, you know, what should I ask Sandy next time, right? So, but this is why I have him here, right? This is why we're so privileged to have him here and educate us on all of these topics. So, by the way, if you have a suggestion for the next topic that we should explore with him, don't forget to add it to the comment section of this video. Looking forward to all of your comments. Other than that, see you guys next time, and remember to stay charged.